Hey, friends. Welcome to my first ever um, work session for the Dance Educator Check In. And today we're working on creating your dance syllabus. This is like an actual work session. I like to think of it as a collaborative work session in that I'm working through my creation of a dance syllabus. And in the ideal world, you're working through it too, so that the questions that are coming up are actual questions that help both of us or all of us proceed forward with this. And I did this because, one, I believe in creating solutions that are actually useful, beneficial to me, so that I know that it works rather than just creating something just to whatever, right? Like I'm coming from a space of being an actual dance educator, looking for solutions that can help me in my praxis and then sharing it with others. And I'm doing this because I've been in this field for a while, for several decades at this time. And one of the things that I've noticed is that some of us come to this space, me included, with lived experience of teaching dance classes, and then are invited to or have opportunities to teach in the academic setting, but not everyone has had the preparation to be in that setting with the resources, the support, and so forth, right? Having in mind that as a dance educator, chances are you might be the only or one of few dance educators in your academic setting. So just going next door and getting help isn't always an option, but there are other dance educators in community, in the world, and so forth. So this idea of creating a syllabus, right? You have this wonderful opportunity to share dance with the next generation. But what does that mean? How does that look? How do you get from point A to point B? That's what we're working through right now. Um, I'm going to use a couple of resources and tools that I created beforehand, and I'm kind of just talking you through it. So it's the summertime, and I like to have my syllabus up and ready for students 2 weeks before classes start. And I like to do that because if there are any materials and so forth that the students need, then I want them to know as early as possible. My academic institution only opens up the course information about 2 weeks before. So I like to have it 2 weeks before, no later than 1 week before. That's why we're starting right now. Yeah. I also, at the end of the previous semester, I make a list of, I reflect what worked well and what would I like to do differently? So I have that list with me. And when I'm thinking about this class, or when I'm thinking about going into the next semester, I wanted to have a class that met more frequently throughout the week. I wanted to have a class that gave the students more time to engage and play with the material. And I know that might seem like juvenile or not attractive, but here's the thing: we learn through play. We learn through exploration. So creating opportunities where the students can play, explore is something that I wanted to have more of in the class, and more time for writing. As someone is a that works in higher ed, um, one of the things that I've noticed is that I'm gonna share my truth. My truth is that I can tell the difference between my dance the writing of my dance majors and the writing of some of the other majors. Now you're like, oh well, Maya, of course you would be able to tell the difference between them. Yeah, and at the same time, if you at the same time, writing grants is very easily something that any dancer will have to do, whether it's applying for professional development grants so that you can go to a conference, whether it is being a dance educator and writing a grant so that you can get more supplies for your classroom, whatever that thing is, whether it's because you've got accepted into a conference and you need some support. It is not it is a high possibility that you will have to write. I go with that exploration, right? Playing in the thing. So if I give my students more opportunities to write inside of the class, then they're more likely to have stronger skills at writing and be able to apply them in real life situations. Oh, so one of the things that I also do, I almost forgot about this, was we want to set a timer. So this work block, I like to have work blocks that are between 20 to 45 minutes. So we're going to do a 30-minute work block today. We've already been talking for about 5. So I'm going to set this timer for 25 minutes. Because I do want to get to the thing, but I don't want to exhaust myself. And knowing that sometimes we need to refresh ourselves. I also have set the setting for myself. So I have some lo-fi music playing in the background. I have some water to keep myself comfortable. So now I know what changes I want to make in this next semester. And because one of my changes was more frequency of the class, it's a whole new syllabus now. It's not just, it's changed because of that, right? This is in the description below if you're interested, but what I'm using right now is my syllabus creation tool. I wrote my questions right there. And like I said, down in the comments below is a link to this. And I like to ask myself questions. So I'm going to give myself pretty much an outline for this work. The first question I like to ask myself is, why do you do this? Feel free to drop your response in the comments below. Why are you a dance educator? Why did you decide to choose to teach dance, right? There are a lot of professions in the world. Why did you choose this? And this question is not so much for my students and for the work as it is a reminder to me, because something like sitting down and working through this can be stressful. It can not be the most exciting thing to do. So remembering my why and putting it somewhere, whether it's on a piece of paper or whatever, putting it somewhere has been very useful to me. I am doing this because of X, Y, and Z. I'm working through this thing because it is important because of X, Y, and Z. So what's your why? My why do I teach dance? Why am I a dance educator? Is because of my lived experience. Dance has been my healing space. Dance has been the place where I can work through other things. And I am excited about curating that opportunity, that experience for others. So I'm willing to sit down and work through something that is not the most exciting thing because it is important to me that this next generation has the space to work through, that explore, that play the things that they need to, so they can be better humans, and ideally we can have a better society. So first question, what's your why? Why do you do this thing? Now, once again, I'm working through this little form right here. Can you see that? Oh, that's not great. This is also my first time doing this. So we're learning, what's it called? On the spot learning, in the field learning, learning on the job. There we go. I'm working through this, which you have access to. And the next question is what forms you're going to teach. So what dance forms are you teaching, right? I'm teaching West African forms specifically as a broader umbrella. And because it's a semester, I want to teach at least one dance form, but not more than 3. So I'm going to teach 3 West African techniques in during the course of the semester. So writing that down, this is how I'm creating the stuff for myself. I want to do at least 3, but a minimum of 1. Now you might ask then, well, how do you decide whether you stay at the 1 or stay at the 3? That's dependent upon my students. My goal is quality over quantity. So I'm going to set up assessments for them. And based on the assessments, it tells me whether or not I need to move forward. Because if I understanding the learning objectives of the institution and the course and so forth, I can hit those all of those learning objectives and just stay in that one technique of movement in one of the dance forms. But if it's possible to give them exposure to other forms, then I want to give that too. So this is a very dynamic situation. So 1 versus 3. And give me a second as you write down what dance forms you're going to do. I'm writing into my question. So I said 1, not more than 3. The next question is, who's your target audience? I had a wonderful mentor that said, you can teach astrophysics to a preschooler. You can. You can. Your language will change. I assure you that the language I use for a preschooler and the language I use for an elder are going to be very different, but it's possible. But what identifying my target audience does is it helps me to shape how I'm going to give the information. So I'm teaching in a higher ed setting, which means that I'll be teaching mostly first year students come into this class, but I might have some second and third year if the second and third year want to just take the class again. So my target audience are college age students, but more specifically, they are that first year, first semester student. So writing that in. Mostly, right? Well, what you can't see is I have like 2 computers. I have a computer right here, I have the computer that we're talking to, and then I have this other one. So the next thing, how many sessions will you have, and what is the length of the sessions? A semester at my university tends to be 15 weeks, and this class is going to meet twice a week. So we are meeting over 15 weeks. We're going to meet twice a week, which is about 13. 13. Sheesh. 30. It's about 30 sessions that I'll have with them. And this class is going to meet for an hour 15, so 75 minutes. 75 minutes per session. Now, we'll get into this in our next working session. But it's important to remember that there is the academic calendar, right? So just because there's 15 weeks and 2 times a week equals 30 doesn't mean that you'll actually have the students for those 30 sessions. So at a later point when I come back to this to map out the course in our next working session, we'll talk about how we work out plugging in the calendar and looking at exactly how many we have. So this is a general number. 30 is our general number. Does the next question on our list is, does the institution have a standard syllabus format? And if so, do you have a copy of it? So this institution the institution where I am does have not a standard, but they have a previous version of a course, of a similar course that has been gifted to me to work from. So I have that copy open on my computer screen right now to use as a guide. And the beautiful thing about this is because it is one that is used by the university, it has those learning objectives. So I don't have to search for the learning objectives. Remember, like I gave myself 30 minutes to work. And if I have to search out those objectives, that's going to cut into that time. So we are working efficiently, right? Is there a tool? Is there a foundation that we can already use that will help us get there? So I have this this earlier version or similar version of the course, and I'm using those reflective questions that I have and my ideas to shape, I think that's the best word, to shape this syllabus to that. Okay, so Yes is the answer to that question. And I'm using it and I'm writing these things down. So when you see me turning this way, I'm writing it down. Yes, there is a standard syllabus and I'm using it as my kind of like my template and guide, template and guide. So we get a bit of plug and play. The next question is, how do you describe your, how, let me read the question. Next question is, how would you describe the ideal environment of the classroom and course? So this comes from a colleague that I worked with in theater, and they talked about building worlds. When you're making a movie, when you're doing a play, you're creating this world. And I was like, well, that's similar to a classroom, right? You are creating the feel, the culture. We're really just talking about the culture of the classroom. So what do I, if someone were to ask the students how the class felt or how yeah, how the class felt to them or how the class moved. That's, I'm thinking of that so I can work backwards. How would I want a student to respond to that? So some of these questions are actually coming from the ooh, the glare. Dancing Toward Mindfulness and Inclusivity. There is also a link to that as an ebook in the description below. So some of these questions are in multiple places because I understand that we need information in different ways. So the question is, how do I want students to describe this environment? I want them to feel like they have space for respectful discourse. Like, I don't need you to agree with everything that I said, but I do need you to be respectful. Um, I want them to feel like they are a part of this journey. Like, they not even a part of the journey. They definitely are a part of the journey. I want them to feel like they are steering the boat. Like, we're taking turns steering the boat. So they actually have the power or the opportunity to help shape and shift how the class is going. So going back to that earlier statement of how many techniques or how many dance forms am I going to teach in this course, 1 to 3 is what I'm saying. And there will be space for them to shift and help shape how that lands. So respectful discourse, like I want them to feel like they can add in to the curriculum, that they're heard. I want them to feel like they can share their interests, concerns, successes, and things like that. So that is a lot of words. I wrote a short version of that in my notes. Um, and what I'll come to later, that question will really help me to build out the policies and procedures. So this question right here is how I'm going to later build out the policies and procedures. Thinking of my syllabus, so you're like, that's policies and procedures. Yeah, these questions are help creating that structure of the syllabus. The way that I work is the syllabus is it's the anchor of the course. It is the bird's eye view of the course. It's like the short version of everything that's going to happen, and then the details come later. So this is the structure that's going to give me that I'm going to build out into my curriculum mapping and so forth over the next couple of weeks. Time check, we're at 19 minutes, so we're doing good. We're mostly through the questions because after this, I just have to plug it into that structure, that format that I have from the university. Definitely flesh it out, right? But I have the nitty gritty. I have the meat of it, the foundational substance of it. The next question is, what are the expectations of the institution or the studio that I'm working for? So notice I said studio or institution, academic institution. Because for some of us, we might be coming into a studio that has asked us to build a syllabus. So that syllabi aren't just for academic settings. They can also be used in studios as well. I think even if you are not asked to build a syllabi for your dance studio, I think it's good practice to do it just as a guideline for yourself. And possibly if you decide to go into academia at some other point, you know how to do this thing. So, what are the expectations of the studio, the learning institution, and so forth? Going back to that earlier statement of the template, I have the learning objectives because I have an older version or similar version, excuse me, of the dance course that I'm using as my template. So I already have those in there. That's easy. So we got that one done. If you don't, you want to ask. Don't assume. You want to ask. Next question. Do you plan to teach any contextual or historical information? So yes. The answer to that question for me is yes. Now, how did we get to that yes? This is my higher ed mind. This is my sits in a position where I am assessing uh, grants and so forth mind. Dance is more than movement. I feel like we can all agree to that. Dance has multiple impacts on our physical body and society, our home space, and all of the things. I think that we can agree to that. What I have noticed sometimes, or not sometimes, what I have experienced as an educator is that sometimes students come and they know the movement, but they haven't completely embodied the essence of it or have a deep understanding of it because they don't know the contextual knowledge around the movement. Um, so not to go too deep into this, I like to uh, uplift Catherine Dunham's work and just to quickly point out the idea of form and function. So if I'm going to use that in this reason of why I do this, okay, so if I'm teaching a harvesting dance and I explain to my students that this is harvesting a rice, at what level is the rice? What does the rice feel like? It allows them to understand how the movement is happening, why the movement is happening, and then to demonstrate the movement with that understanding. So I always like to give contextual knowledge about the dance just because I feel like it helps with the teaching process. So my answer to that is yes. That's not going to be the answer to everybody. For example, if you are teaching just a rep class, you might not have the time, or it might not be necessary in your eyes, in your studio's eyes, your institution's eyes to teach. I, however, do always. And we're almost at time. Goals. What do you expect the learner to be able to do by the end of the course? So these are the guides, right? Like this is the what do I expect the dancers to be able to do? So this could be specific movements that I expect them to do. This could be questions that I want them to answer. Because I am a curriculum writer, in this case, I'm just going to go to the technique benchmarks that I created for my West African dance classes that I created for the institution, excuse me, for my West African dance courses. So I've created, this is foundational level, this is level 2, this is da 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 da. I'm just going to pull from those. At the same time, if you don't have that, think about if somebody was moving to another instructor and you wanted that student to be prepared, what movements, what information would you want would you want that student to have to say that they're legitimately prepared to move on? And it can just be a list of 5 things, right? 5 is a good list. 10 is a good list too, but 5 things that you want them to know when they leave you, and that's what's going to go in that section. So now continuing to map out these sections of the syllabus. And then the last question as we finish up for today, resources. Are there any resources that you want the learners to use? I am a visual learner. I'm a visual learner, so watching something being done or doing it myself is the best way for me to learn it. And it's because it's very easy for us to teach the way that we learn. Um, I try to provide different resources for getting the information. So how many ways can I point them to someone? Now, this does not mean that I'm creating them, because I am a strong uh, I believe strongly that when the workday ends, and I step away from it. So I'm not extending my workday. Remember, I set that timer for this 30-minute work block, and we got through all of the questions, and we still have 4 minutes and 40 some seconds left before we finish out this time. And I have the gist of everything that's going into my syllabus. 30 minutes. We did this. Hurrah, 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 hurrah. Or you know what you need to come to for your next work block. So I like to just plug in. So if there are other educators or other dancers or other community members that you can highlight and share, use those things. Use those things. So what other resources might they be? Books, videos, templates, those things. I'm going to attach those or make them accessible to my students during the course to help support the course. I also like to call this, I think it's called micro learning. For example, if I want my students, not if, I like my students to be able to know how to do a formal email. And I created I created a video that walks you through, and an assignment that walks you through doing an email. So it's a quick link, like I did it once and it's there. So I am not above sharing it several times with the students, letting them know. Going back to that question, what other resources are you going to attach? So I'm going to have things like creating an email, how to respond to people in the email thread. I'm going to have additional videos for links to different videos of the same technique being taught by other people, so that students begin to see, like, this is how it's coming in this space. It can also look like this. There is no this is the only way to do it in the forms that I am teaching, right? Because it is about discussion. The way you sound, okay, that's going too deep. But I have the resources. So at this point, I've worked through the entire Maya D Specialist syllabus creation session 1 in our 30-minute block, right? You have the link to it below, as well as some links to some other things. And in our next block, or when I come back, I'm going to do that off screen. I'm going to come back for another half an hour session where I walk through and do all of the writing, make it make sense, because it's in my notes right now. But I'm going to plug those terms, that information into the draft that I have, and make it pretty, make it legible, make it so that other people can understand it. And that way, when we come back for session number 2, I can move on to the next step. I hope that this has been helpful for you. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions. What's coming up for you? Let me know your why. Why are you a dance? Try that again. Why are you a dance educator? What does this mean to you? Hope that this has been helpful. If there are things that you would like to know moving forward, drop those in the comments below, or just drop an apple so that I know that you're here with me. Yeah. Have a great day and hope to see you soon. Take care.